Joined by Jak Alnwick. How are you doing, mate?
All good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks a lot for coming on. Appreciate it.
No problem. Anytime.
So just want to start off by asking you what your early football memories are.
I think I've got so many, but I think probably the earliest is like going and watching my brother when he was sort of at Sunderland. I was a young kid, probably about 10-year-old. Obviously, I was playing youth team football at Sunderland at the time. And yeah, I remember just going and watching my brother, like full stadiums, didn't have a clue what it was, anything like that. And then, yeah, he used to come home from training and say, getting that goal, I'm going to smash the ball past you. And I was just this little kid and scared of the ball and everything. But yeah, that was kind of what started the goalkeeping trend. Obviously, growing up, you want to be like your older brother until you get to a certain age, and then you hate your older brother. But no, that was it when I was younger. It was just sort of him and his mates used to put me in goal when they used to play heads and volleys and stuff like that. And kind of that just pushed me into goalkeeping, and sort of age of 10, I just absolutely loved it.
And how did you firstly end up getting picked up by Sunderland?
So I was playing for Prudhoe Youth Club at the time. It's just a local team up in Newcastle. And they used to always have one scout that used to kind of go around the Northumberland area. And he had kind of said, listen, I've never seen someone so keen to play in goal. And sort of at that sort of age of, I think it was around 8-9-year-old, he said, like, he's big, he loves playing in goal, like he makes a save with his face and he's not bothered. And I think that was quite rare, because as young kids, you know what they're like. It's kind of like they get hit by the ball and it's kind of, oh, I want to come off and that. And I think just kind of the way I grew up, and obviously having an older brother and an older sister and a dad who done kickboxing and stuff like that, I was quite rough and ready. So yeah, Sunderland Scout came and wanted to take me as early as possible. And I think I joined Sunderland Academy. I must have been 9-10-year-old at the time. And yeah, just kicked on from there. I remember I got to about 12-year-old. I think it was 12-year-old. And do you know how they do sort of football in the community? I remember Newcastle came to my school to do football in the community, and I played outfield because I was playing in goal all the time, and they tried to sign me as a left winger. And yeah, it just all worked out. I used to play in goal for youth team, and I used to play outfield for my school at times and stuff like that. And just used to love playing football, but ultimately I knew that I was a good goalkeeper. So yeah, that's where it all started.
What is it with keepers always wanting to play outfield?
I don't know. I think it's because you always want to score goals. Like you see everything every week. It's like goal scorer this, goal scorer that. I mean, even look in the papers as a goalkeeper, I kept a clean sheet and made 2-3 really good saves, and you get to 7 and you think, so hold on. But if a striker scores a hat-trick, it's 10, he's the best thing. Get him in all the team weeks, get him in this, get him in that. Scotland call-ups, England call-ups. Whereas goalkeepers, it's like it's a longevity thing where you've got to do well over a long period of time. So I think from young, you've just got that fire. Even in training, like you do goalie sessions where it's like, right, want to try and score, and you're literally trying to bend them in the top corner and stuff like that. It's just, I think it's one of them things. You've not had the exposure as a kid of just celebrating goals and just being a young kid again.
What made you end up going from Sunderland to Newcastle?
So at the time it was a difficult one, because my brother had obviously came through the academy there and had played for Sunderland, and then made his move to Tottenham when he was 18. And it was brilliant for my brother, but then we had a discussion with my parents, well, like, would I get judged on what my brother's done? Because I mean, he was a nightmare as a 17, 18, 19-year-old. We're having to tie him down at Sunderland to try, and he was a naughty kid at school. That's the best way I can put it. And what you're saying, we didn't know if I was going to get judged off that. And then Newcastle had kind of spoke to me and said, listen, we would be putting you on a pro contract as soon as you turned. I was 16 in the June. So they said, you do a year's scholarship, which you have to do. And then 17, you're going to have a 3-year pro contract. And it just worked out. Newcastle was a lot closer to my house. I mean, when I was at Sunderland, I was finishing school. My mum was picking us up from school, driving us to my dad's used car garage that he had, which was 25 minutes away. He'd finish work at 5 o'clock, and then he would drive me to Sunderland, and my dad would be working all day, drive me to Sunderland, and then we would be getting back in at the house at 9 o'clock at night. And then my dad would do the same the next day and just continue. So, and as parents, I mean, if it wasn't for them taking the time out, my mum didn't have a job because basically me and my brother needed driving about the football, and my dad used to work, obviously his car garage would close at 5, 6, 7 o'clock, and then he'd be taking us to training, get home 10 o'clock, straight to bed and do the same again. So I think it was just a lot to do with easiness, because at the time as well, there was teams, Chelsea, Everton, the biggest teams you could name it wanted me, but I think it was just a sensible decision all around for family, and just kind of, so I wasn't seen in the same light as my brother.
When you were coming through at Newcastle, was there anybody like coming through in your team at the same time as you that maybe know?
To be honest, my age group was a really good age group, but then all of a sudden kind of fizzled out. There was a boy, Aaron Spear, we signed. I think we paid 250 grand from Plymouth. He was amazing, but again, we're signing from Plymouth and he couldn't settle. He missed home too much. He was going to be a big player, and ended up just falling out the game. But it was sort of the age group above that I played for a lot, which was like Taverniers, Dummett, Brad Inman, who obviously went on, Sammy Amiobi, I'm trying to think here, Shane Ferguson's, Niall Rangers. So a lot, to be honest, there's a lot other ones, sort of like Connor Newton, who came up to St Mirren, obviously, and he went down and had a decent enough career, played Cambridge and stuff like that. So the year above was actually a really, really good age group, which I played in quite a lot.
When did you first start getting involved in the first team?
So I think it'll have been around, so I was playing a year above myself. I was 17. I was playing in I think it was the 19s at the time, is what it used to be. And I remember I was always involved with, any time they needed a goalkeeper, I would step up. And I think my first time was around the Chris Hughton era, where we had sort of Kevin Nolan's, Alan Smith, Steve Harper's, and sort of like your Colacinis had just came in the building and stuff like that. And I remember, training with them, and it was, you're looking at these lads, like Alan Smith came from Man United, and it was just sort of like starstruck sort of thing. But it was brilliant. They tried to, although the academy and the first team building are separate, they try to kind of get up as much as we can. And then it wasn't long, sort of 18-year-old, I was a regular training with the first team goalkeepers week in, week out. So we had, at the time, it will have been Tim Krul, Shay Given I was with just for a little bit. I had sort of 3 sessions with him before he went to Man City. And then obviously it was Steve Harper, Fraser Foster. So it was a brilliant group. I know, and you look at all 3, if you take just Tim Krul, Steve Harper, Foster, and even Shay Given, 4 of them couldn't be any different goalkeepers. So it was a good mix for me growing up. Trying to take little parts from all of them. It was, I think that's what set us up to be the goalkeeper I am.
Do you think, how much of a positive impact do you think that had on you as a keeper? Massively,
because sometimes you try and mould yourself into a goalkeeper. So, I mean, there'll probably be young goalkeepers at St Mirren trying to mould themselves into me, but they'll never be the same goalkeeper as me. And you only find that with experience. I've just took little parts from different things. I mean, Tim Krul was a really average goalkeeper in training. And then all of a sudden you get to a Saturday and wow, he just turned it on. It was just like, get through the week. He had the injuries that he was playing through, and it was kind of like done what he needed to do and was very professional. And then we'd get to a Saturday, amazing. And then I'm at the stage now where your body's starting to grumble with different injuries, and you just kind of, you tick through certain sessions and then get to a game day and you switched on. Then we had the experience of Steve Harper, who just was out there, and you kind of, obviously was slower and stuff, but kept on making saves, and you're like, how's he still making them saves at 36, 37-year-old? And then obviously you had Fraser, who was just like a big brick wall at the time. He was just so big, made unorthodox saves, everything was big bash, forearm, face, didn't matter. So it was brilliant. And then I had Freddie Woodman, who got brought into the club, who was younger than me. So also I was looking up, and then I'm looking, thinking, oh, Freddie's coming here as well. So it was a great mix, and it was a competitiveness. And I seen the years of where we were getting relegated, and then the years of where we finished 5th. So all in all, it was amazing to have all the different types of goalkeepers there.
Talk me through your debut against Chelsea. Coming on it, Rob Elliott got injured, eh?
That's right. That's another goalkeeper I'll have to apologise. I didn't mention Robbie. The best training goalkeeper I've ever seen. He came in, we had signed this lad from Charlton. He'll say himself at the time was quite overweight, and wow, training, flying about, everything like that. So he got in the team, was doing really well. Tim dislocated his shoulder or his elbow or something like that. Sorry, it was his elbow while he was away with Netherlands. Came back, and all of a sudden he's getting an operation. So I ended up on the bench, and Robbie was playing, doing really well, but he always had this problem with his quad. And every game he was like, my quad's really bad, really bad. And I scanned it, nothing showed up on the scan, nothing. I'm like, yeah, like whatever. And I remember it was away at Burnley the week before, I think it was, and he was struggling big time. I'm like, it was pouring down. It was about -3. Burnley had Chris Wood, Barnes, and I'm like, please don't come off. The young kid sat on the bench like this, like, I don't want to come on. Yeah, like, although I was excited and that, it was, and then yeah, the week after it was Chelsea at home, and obviously I'm stood in the tunnel walking down to sit on the bench, and you're looking like Drogba, Diogo Costa. I'm like, wow. And then yeah, literally goal kick before half time. Robbie takes goal kick, bang, straight down, quad completely gone. And then yeah, came in, and the goalie coach Andy Woodman was like, "You're coming on." He's like, "Do you want to go out and do a warm up?" I was like, "Yeah, if you want, like whatever you think." And went and done 10 volleys on the pitch. And to be fair, he kind of put his arm around, listen, he said, "You don't even need to do like a proper warm up." He said, "Adrenaline will get you through." And I just remember coming on, it was no fear, it was no lose. I remember I'd had conversations with Pardew. I was third choice, but I hadn't been out on loan. I hadn't played games. I wanted to leave the club, not because I wanted to leave the football club. I just wanted to go and play football. And what I'd talked about the week before, Bournemouth wanted to take me in to train. And he was like, "Listen, I'll wait till Tim gets back off international duty, and we'll let you go and train and stuff." And then bang, I was in, and I remember I had a brilliant 45 minutes. Took Mourinho's record away, 1-2-1. It was on Sky, and I remember sitting there after the game, and like people were talking to us, and nothing registered. My family spoke was after the game. They were at the game. First time, like my dad comes to every single game, but like I think majority of my family were at the game, which was a weird one. Like they were never really together for the games, and I remember just sitting after the game, like, what has just happened? And as a young kid going through your Twitter like that, like looking at every single comment, and that it was amazing, no feeling like that.
Did you go to Newcastle that night?
No, so we went out for a family meal in Ponteland, which is close, and like straight away I was getting recognised, and I'm like, this young 21-year-old kid, like, didn't know what was going on. I think I left it a few weeks before I went out, because I think it was around the Christmas time, and I think we had like, I think I ended up playing 6 games in the space of like 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. So it was a mad time, but yeah, it was going from this young kid that no one had really heard of to like going into the Metro Centre for a pair of trainers, and like people asking for photos. It was an amazing time, but something that'll live with us forever.
I need to speak to you about playing in the Newcastle Sunderland derby as well, because I think that's probably one of like the last sort of old school derbies in England, if you know what I mean.
Definitely, yeah. I think it was one of them. I think I had played against Chelsea, done really well, and I played against Tottenham in the cup, and I had a terrible game. I had dropped a cross, and I think we got beat 5-0, and I didn't do great. And I had gotten a bad shoulder injury in the game, and there was talk of bringing in an emergency loan and this, that, and the other. And I remember going into the Old Firm game. Sorry, I keep saying the Old Firm. I'm so used to it now. The Newcastle Sunderland derby. I was being sick after training. I was in that much pain, but I was like, I am playing in this game no matter what happens. I was getting injections into my arm just to try and like get rid of the pain. And obviously I was nervous because I'd made a mistake the week before, and it was kind of like on match of the day, everything, it was so blown up, and I'm like, oh my God. And I went into the game, and to be fair, I had like a very, very good game, but we ended up getting beat 1-0. And there's a picture of me like down, holding my head like this, because I was a Newcastle fan, do you know what I mean? It was, although I was playing for them, it was kind of like, we've just lost to Sunderland there. Even when I watch the games now, Newcastle, Sunderland, even when I watch Rangers, Celtic, I'm sitting there nervous, like, come on, Newcastle, come on, Rangers. It's like a nervousness, like, so playing in it, it was just like the atmosphere, everything. Because I was just a young kid, I hadn't played any men's football, and no, I'd done really well in the game, but we got beat 1-0 to a last minute Adam Johnson winner, and it just broke my heart. But then I walked off, I was like, I've done well. So like, it was kind of like a bad thing that I'd lost, but a good thing that I had kind of getting that credit back. I had a good game, really bad game, and then another good one. So yeah, but to be from Newcastle and playing one of them games, it's what you dream of.
So after playing in the games like that, how did you end up leaving Newcastle? How did that come about?
It was a really strange one, because Pardew actually got sacked during my time in the team. We were going through a real tough spell. I remember we were playing, I think we're back four, Perch was playing centre half, who was centre mid. I think Jak Alnwick was playing left back, and we were really struggling. We played Man U, Tottenham, Chelsea, Arsenal, and got battered by all of them, and Pardew got sacked. And then I remember it was sort of, I played, I think it was Burnley at home, and I was struggling with his shoulder all the way through. And then Tim came back, and Tim was straight back in, and John Carver had taken over as manager. And there was no real conversations of contracts or nothing like that. And I thought it was a bit strange, because I'm a young kid, came into the team, done well, had a couple of bad games. I thought I was going to be offered a contract and then sent straight out on loan. It wasn't. So I went out on loan to Bradford, because I think John Carver had kind of made it known. Obviously, Andy Woodman was a goalkeeping coach. That made it known that Tim was playing and Freddie Woodman was on the bench, which at the time I was like, what's going on here? I didn't understand. And then Bradford rang and said, you're going to come in and play. And I ended up going in. I played one game and then broke my wrist. And then I remember I went back to Newcastle for my treatment to get fit. And then that summer, I heard absolutely nothing. And contract ran out, and I was just sat there like, I've got no club. And that was it. It was such a strange time. I understand that Newcastle was in a massive transition of obviously trying to get a new manager in, kind of, I was out of contract, this young kid, and kind of that's the way it ended up going. I think they were trying to pay like pathways for Freddie Woodman to sort of come through, which is fair enough, that it happens in football. But as a young kid, I didn't understand it. Now looking back, I understand it. And football's a ruthless business, and that's the way it ended up going.
Especially like at that time, you were a younger player, like you said. Do you think there's got to be like a bit more a sort of duty of care to players?
Yeah, I think Newcastle learned a lot from it, because they've never put themselves in that situation again. And sort of Freddie Woodman has done unbelievable off the back of me, because all of a sudden he went out on loan to, I'm going to say 6 different clubs, probably played 200-300 league games to set him up to now play at Newcastle. Whereas me, it was kind of, I'm third choice, wasn't allowed to go out on loan in case something like that happened. So I think the loans are brilliant for especially goalkeepers. I think strikers, you stick them on for a couple of games, they're probably going to score, just how enthusiastic they are, and then all of a sudden the next best thing. And kind of strikers can't really have a bad game. I know they can, but if they make a mistake, it doesn't really matter. Whereas a goalkeeper, you make one mistake, it's a goal, and you're the worst goalkeeper anyone's ever seen. So I think a lot of teams can learn, like the goalkeeping side of thing. I think goalkeepers have to go and play. You can get a goalkeeper that'll step in and do brilliant for one game, but sort of 5-6 games, you'll start to find that the form will go up, down, up, down. So yeah, I think as young goalkeepers, whatever level men's football, they need to go out and play, because there's some guys who play Scottish Championship, League One, English, League Two, Conference, and below that, they're relying on a win bonus to pay their mortgages and to pay for food and stuff like that, and to get into that environment of like, I need to win here. And it gets your mistakes out the way early, and kind of you make the mistakes in the conference and no one even knows about it. Whereas you're making mistakes in the Premier League and it's on Match of the Day, it's on Sky Sports News. And I think obviously getting lads out on loan is a massive thing for goalkeepers.
See, when you ended up at Port Vale, did you feel as if it was almost like a fresh start for you a wee bit?
Definitely. It was, and even that was a crazy time. I left Newcastle, didn't have a club, no clubs were talking about me. We got in touch with nearly every football league club, and sort of League Two were looking, going, we want someone that's played 300 games. And I'm like, they were taking like Brian Jensen, who was like 39-year-old, who, don't get us wrong, was brilliant in his day, but was kind of done. And they were saying, yeah, we're taking Brian Jensen instead of you. And I'm sitting there like, what?
That's crazy.
So I was struggling for a club at the time. I was, my agent was saying, listen, don't worry, we'll wait till the season starts. There'll be injuries, there'll be red cards, and you'll get yourself in somewhere. And I'm sitting there like, I'm not sure about this. And then just so happens, my best mate at the time, Remy Street, was at Port Vale, and they had played 2 or 3 pre-season games. The first choice was injured, and the second and third choice were all right, but apparently were really poor in pre-season. He went and seen the manager and said, listen, my best mate's been released from Newcastle, what do you think? And he was like, really? He said, I thought he still had like 2-3 years left there. He said, yeah, we'll get him in. So I signed on the Friday, the day before the season, and played on the Saturday. And yeah, Rob Page took a big gamble on us at the time, who's now obviously Wales manager. And he just, he said, listen, just do what you do. He says, you're a young kid. He said, just go out and enjoy it. And I remember I ended up playing 87 games, and form of my career. And honestly, the first season there was kind of like unbeatable at times. And it was amazing for us just to restart my career. And someone, I can't remember who it said, they said, get to 100 league games as quickly as possible. And I ended up playing 87 at Port Vale. And straight away I came off the back of that. I was like, well, I've kind of done that. And it set us up for big things to come.
Did you feel yourself getting better and better every week because you were playing consistently, obviously?
It was just a pure confidence. You get fans talking of like, he's got to be player of the year, he's got to be this, he's got to be that. I was 21, 22 at the time, and it's just this confidence of you rolling into games, just knowing how good you are. And like, when you're confident, it's like, go on, shoot from there, I'm saving it, don't worry about that. Like, and when a goal goes in, you're like, no, there was a time where I made a mistake and I went and got the ball through it back, and I was like, I don't care. Like, it was weird. Yet there's times where you're low on confidence, where you're like, you want to get to a game where you're like, oh, don't shoot from there, or please don't cross that. Like, and you go into a game going, oh, that sun's a bit low, it's raining. It's like, whereas now you turn up and it's windy and you're like, who cares? Like, so yeah, it was just a pure confidence thing. And the manager absolutely loved me there, and he wanted to go on to big things. I wanted to go on to big things. And yeah, he done amazing for me at the time, and it was a brilliant time for me.
Then Rangers come calling.
Hi.
How did that come about? How did you first hear about that interest? Because that's a big step up, obviously, for Port Vale. No disrespect.
Yeah. No, it was. I heard about it quite early on in the January window. My agent rang me and he said, listen, Rangers are looking at you. He says they're really keen. Matt Julks isn't happy up there. He's wanting to go and play. He had his opportunities and done well and got taken out of the team, and something had happened. And I played a couple more games for Port Vale, done really well. And then we played Huddersfield in the Cup. I think it was sort of 3 weeks before the end of the window, so it'll have been sort of first week of January, and I'd done my ankle ligaments in the game, and I was like, oh no, like the Rangers move's going to be gone. And I ended up getting myself back in 2 weeks. Physio was saying 6 weeks. I was like, nah, 2 will be fine. And I remember we played Oldham away, I think it was, and my ankle was about that big, and I was strapped it up, got through the game. One of the biggest worldies I had in Rangers, I think it was Frank McParlin, was at the game that time, and he rang my agent and just went, we're signing him. My agent was like, right, okay. And then I played against Scunthorpe the day before the window closed. And then got through that game and I was sitting about because I had a buyout clause in my contract. But my agent, you're not allowed to tell other teams that you've got a buyout clause, because obviously it's for Port Vale, they wanted Rangers to come and bid £1 million at the time. So they had bids, off the top of my head, I think it was like 125 grand plus 125 grand worth of add-ons. And we knew I had a 250 buyout at the time. And they kind of said to my agent, what do you think will get him out? And my agent basically said, listen, I think maybe if you offer, instead of doing installments up front, you'll kind of get him. So they'd done that, and then all of a sudden triggered the buyout clause, and I was on the train up to Rangers for my medical. Obviously knew how big it was, but not as big as what I thought. I got that. I was like, wow, what is going on here? Those cameras outside the training ground. I was like, what is this? Obviously I've been at Newcastle and I kind of understood it a little bit, but then once you're actually in the city and you're literally getting your post through and the postman's like, you all right, like enjoying it? And it was unbelievable at the time, and didn't realise how big it was till I actually got up here. But yeah, it was crazy time, but what a massive club, man.
Down in England, nobody realises just how big it is, do they?
It was, because obviously growing up in Newcastle, I was like, Newcastle, Sunderland, that doesn't get beat. Like, everyone's talking about Rangers, Celtic, and I'm like, I've seen Old Firm on the TV. Wait till you go to Newcastle, Sunderland, and like, you'd be going on the bus and you'd be getting bricks through your window. And I'm like, Newcastle, Sunderland can't get beaten. Then I remember my first Old Firm, I was like, I'm completely wrong here. I was like, this is like life and death. It's like, it's through generations, and you've got young girls who are 8, 9-year-olds sticking their fingers up at your bus, and I'm like, what is going on here, man? It was, honestly, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But you have to learn pretty quickly up here. That's one thing I found out.
It's a proper goldfish bowl, like everything's scrutinised there.
Oh, massively. Because I even remember signing for Rangers, and there was a girl, Alice, at the time. She was kind of done the press and stuff, and she was like, right, you don't say this, you don't say that, you don't say, if you're asked about Celtic, you don't say that. Obviously, you go in the training ground, nothing's green apart from the pictures. That's the only thing that I said was green. You meet Jimmy Bell, who's the first guy in the building. Walked in my first day, stood there like that. Like, don't look like a goalkeeper to me. And I'm like, I went, well, hopefully I play like one. And like, he's like talking us through like Stefan class, like and I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, and Jimmy was brilliant. He was like, he's a tough nut to crack, but once you get to know him, what a guy, what stories about Gaza, and it was just unbelievable. But yeah, it was such a strange time, because obviously Warburton signed me, didn't he? And then I think it was 2 weeks later, it was kind of, he's been sacked, he's resigned, whatever it was at the time. We didn't know what was going on. And I was like, God, Warburton's told me I'm coming into play, and kind of it's between me and Wes, but like, he sees me as playing and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, within 2 weeks, gone.
Madness, eh?
Aye, so crazy.
I can't get you on and no ask about that progress game with Christina and the hedge and that. Talk me through that from your perspective.
So I obviously hadn't been there long, and we had getting into Europe, and it was a weird time. Murty had taken over as interim at a point, and then obviously Kashinya got the job. And yeah, it was difficult for me, because I thought I should have been playing at the time, and then we went to Progress, and obviously we played them at home, and I was like, yeah, it's all right, we'll beat them away. Like, they were saying they were firefighters or this, and I'm thinking, looking at our team, thinking we've got lads who are like top draw here. And yeah, just went into that game, and it was kind of like, it had an eerie feeling about it, and all of a sudden, like, we had getting beat, but I was like, we haven't been knocked out off them. And then I remember we were just all sat in the change room after the game, like, lads heads down, like, you could hear the fans outside, like, wanting to get into the changing room, like, lads' numbers had been passed out to Rangers fans, like, lads. Like, I remember Martin Waghorn at the time, he had to change his number on that because like getting like proper like abuse, like abused and that. And then we didn't know anything about the Kashinia and the hedge and all that.
I shouldn't laugh, man, but I just can't get it in my head.
I know it wasn't until like we got back home, we flew back to Glasgow, there was all the security saying, listen, we're going to have to take you through this way, there's fans waiting for you. And it was a real eye-opener for me because I obviously knew how big the club was, but like, I thought, well, it's the first time we've been back into Europe. Like, did they really expect us to get out into the groups? And then all of a sudden I was like, wow, they expected us to win Europa League, never mind get out into the group stages. And it was one, and yeah, the whole hedge situation. And to be honest, Kashinia, like, I know he was made sort of like a scapegoat and everyone had their laugh about him. He meant so well. He honestly had the club at heart. And I think I spoke to his goalkeeping coach at the time who he took everywhere. And he said, I think he got kind of too torn up in Rangers through and through and kind of went a bit too intense with it. But honestly, the bloke, what a nice guy. Obviously, he was lunatic, but what a good heart and proper family man, like lovely guy. But just like he came at a really tough time. But honestly, he had the club's best interest at heart. There was times he slept at the training ground, like after games and stuff. Like, I'd go back to the training ground, do his analysis on his computer. He'd sleep there, wake up the next morning. He loved it, but it just didn't work out for him. And I don't think people seen that side of it. I think they just seen the hedge situation, like the Kenny Miller situation, all this mental stuff that went on, but didn't see the other side of him, which was a really nice bloke.
See, when you say lunatic, give me an example of something where you've just went, what is he doing?
So the one that stood out for me, like, it didn't stand out, but I remember we'd done a team meeting about how we were going to play and this, that, and the other. We sort of done he'd done his team talk and named the team, this, that, and the other. This was the day before a game, and Joe Garner was sat there and he said, listen, he said, if anyone doesn't understand, put the hand up. And Joe Garner was like, Gaffer, like, I just want to know what we're doing from goal kicks. Are we like kicking onto me? And he was like, Joe, you don't understand? You don't want to play tomorrow? Like that. And he hammered Joe Garner and he was like, Joe's like, I only asked if like we're kicking from goal kicks and out the team, no problem, like that. And he went mental at him. And there was so many stories. I remember we played Aberdeen away, and this was the best one. Obviously, in the hotel the night before, letters underneath the door, opened it. This big long, like, we are going to war, boys. This is our time. This is this. Honestly, it was a page about that big. Individual, like, this is your role. We're not footballers. We're gladiators. And I'm sitting there reading it like, good one, mate. Like that. Like, I was like, what is going on here? And then the meeting before the game. Do you know the movie 300 where they're going creeping across the hill and looking into the Coliseum?
Aye.
Mate, he's got the Coliseum as the Aberdeen Stadium. And it's them crawling over with the Rangers badge on, like that, looking over onto the thing. And we were sat there like, and he's like, this is war, boys. This is no football match. This is war. And like, boys are like sitting there nudging each other, like laughing and stuff like that. But like, I get where he's coming from. He's trying to make it like a big deal. But some of the things, the way he put it across was just like, obviously English and Scottish boys, you know what we're like, but there was so many different things with him and the goalkeeping coach, man. It was just like, but yeah, as I say, he did love football. He loved Rangers, but just some stuff probably that was brilliant over when he was in Mexico and that, like, boys over there were probably loving it. That us boys over here, we thought it was banter.
So what I want to ask you about, we touched on a wee bit playing in the Old Firm.
Aye.
Obviously, wasn't a good result, but talk me through the build-up of that.
Aye, so I think my time when I got in, Wes had a shoulder injury for a long time and he kind of had a fallout with the club because I think there was a few bids turned down from this, that and the other. And it got to the split. And if I remember rightly, at the split, I think we needed to win every single game after the split, and Celtic would have needed to have lost every single game to win the league. But I still had Rangers fans saying to me, listen, helicopter Sunday, like this is going to happen and that. And like, obviously I'm sat there with a team. It's a bit like, we had a decent team, but their team, like they were a joke, like the way Rodgers had them playing and stuff like that. And then I remember got in the team, played a couple of games, and then went into the Old Firm. And I remember walking out for the warm-up, and the atmosphere for the warm-up was bigger than I'd ever seen in like a normal full game. Couldn't hear anything. The goalkeeping coach was like volleying balls and shouting, and I'm like, didn't have a clue what he was saying. And yeah, I remember playing in the game, and it was 5, and I think it could have been about 15 that day. I think we had our awards night that night, and like the lads were saying, listen, we've got to cancel this. And the only good thing that came from me, the fans were like, give all the awards to Jak Alnwick. He was unbelievable. He stopped it being the biggest score ever. So I was a bit like, do you know, as a goalkeeper, like when scorelines get like that, you go, try and take something from the game. So I made a lot of saves, kept were sort of like, without obviously it was an embarrassment, but it wasn't where you're going, oh my God, we beat 10-0 by Celtic. So yeah, it was a good personal one for me, even just to experience the Old Firm, just to kind of get the grips with playing in that sort of game. Obviously, I've been on the bench for some, and it's not the same like being on the bench for them. You see what it's like, but once you're in that atmosphere, you're scared to even like hit one bad goal kick and stuff like that. So it was brilliant for me, and it gives us an experience. But then obviously into the change room afterwards, it was just like I've been in a change room where I've been relegated before, and that was lower than being relegated. It was mad, but yeah, I think it set me up personally for knowing that I could play in them big games.
How did it compare to Newcastle, Sunderland, both in like the build-up and the atmosphere?
Newcastle, Sunderland, even though I'm from Newcastle, didn't even come near it.
Really?
Honestly, it was like, even down to we stayed in Mar Hall the night before, even though it was only just Celtic, the police escort, the whole build-up had to be in early just so there wasn't as many of their fans there. The nervousness around the place, even in the training ground, people who weren't involved, like I'm talking like masseuses, cleaners, like the lot, like you could feel the tension of the week before, and it was just a total different like kettle of fish. What like Newcastle Sunderland is big, don't get us wrong, but at the time Newcastle Sunderland had changed because obviously the two boys had died in the plane crash, MH something, where got shot down, and Sunderland donated money to their families. So that kind of, it didn't stop the divide, but it kind of became more of a like light-hearted thing. And obviously the Newcastle fans with Bradley Lowry had sent him a shirt and this, that and the other. So they'd kind of done a lot of things together. So I remember that kind of had died it down a little bit. And then obviously you come into the Rangers Celtic, and it was just total, like, I couldn't believe how big it was. It was, the whole week leading up to it was mental.
I want to ask you about Gerrard as well. What was he like to work under? And at that point, obviously with you being English, is that somebody that were you a bit starstruck initially with him coming in?
Definitely. He was like the prime of who I used to watch when I was younger. It was kind of that sort of era of English players, sort of Gerrard, Scholes, Beckhams. That was like, I had their shirts, like I had a Beckham shirt, and like when I was younger, and it was when he got announced, we were kind of like, wow, Steven Gerrard's coming into this building. And the way he came in with, obviously Mick Beale is like the biggest football brain you've ever met in your life. Like I remember early times of him being in, we went down to 10 men, and like Gaffer would come in and say, listen, Mick's going to speak, listen to him for 5 minutes. And he's going, if we go into this area and we press this way, I know we're down to 10 men, we make it a 6-3-4 in our favour. And I was like, wow. But then Gerrard he's a manager. Do you know what I mean? He's like, like you're sitting in the canteen, he walks in and you're like nervous. Like he's a proper, like the persona, everything about him. He's Steven Gerrard, and he's like a proper manager. And that's why he's done so well, because he's got so much respect, and he's got that fear factor of when he walks in the building, like, I better be on it here. And the standards that he drove, obviously Mick was putting on like the sessions and kind of technical and tactical and a lot of that. And Gerrard obviously knew a lot. He'd played at the highest level. He knew a lot of it. Don't get us wrong. He's brilliant when it comes to tactics as well. But he was the the face of like a big backroom staff who was brilliant at the time, but the standards that he drove when he came in straight away, it was like even body fats, like he was like Premier League levels this, everyone's got to be below this. The first day, the bleep test, he wanted everyone to be up to speed every day. I remember I give one ball away in training, Jack, come on. Like, and I was like, wow, this is like real stuff, this. And just the standards he drove through the place, walked into the training ground, listen, the place is lovely, a lot of history, but we need to modernize it up. I want you to be able to like go, wow, we've got this, we've got a sauna, we've got this, like everything. And just the standards around the whole place was unbelievable, that he single-handedly made sure that was brought in.
And after that, you had a couple of loan moves, then ended up at St Mirren. What was it about St Mirren that attracted you there?
It was a difficult one because I left Rangers and there was a lot that went on. I had been told that I was getting contracts, but it was based on Wes leaving. Obviously, when Gerrard first came in, he said, it's going to be you and Alan McGregor. He says, Wes is going to be leaving. He says, I think you and Alan are going to fight it out brilliantly. And then, obviously, he had Mark Allen, who was above him at the time. Not above him, I'm not going to say above him, but you know what I mean? He was kind of...
Yeah.
He was in between him and sort of the chairman. And he said, listen, Mark's speaking, he's going to get Wes out. And then it eventually turned out they couldn't get Wes out because don't know what the situation was. I think Wes was probably on good money and the teams that wanted him probably just didn't want to pay that sort of money. And just the logistics of football, that's how things work out. And it happened 2 summers in a row. I'm thinking, right, Wes is going, I'm getting a new deal. I'm Rangers like for the next 5 years. And then I remember the first year, Gerrard had pulled us and said, listen, we can't get Wes out. We're thinking of sending you out on loan. And I said, that's fine. I said, if you're going to be saying like, you and Wes are going to swap being on the bench and that, I was like, it's not really for me. I'm still young. I need to go out and play. So I was meant to go to Barnsley. And Rangers kind of didn't let the loan go through to the last minute because they wanted to get through in case, obviously Griggsy had his injury history and they wanted to make sure he got through to the start of the season all right. So Barnsley pulled out because they were like, listen, we need to get ourselves sorted earlier than this. And lo and behold, Barnsley ended up getting promoted that season, but then Scunthorpe needed a goalkeeper later on. Their goalkeeper got injured. So yeah, I went out there and played for a year. We got relegated that season, but again, like I seen that as like it was a bad thing because I had a lot of mates there who ended up like halving their money and being out of contract and being relegated. And I remember we played Plymouth on the last day and kind of on the bus up from Plymouth, the longest journey ever, I'd just been relegated, like lads sitting on the phones, no one spoke. And it was difficult, but obviously I was going back to Rangers at some and I was like, I'm going to use that as like because I was still a young lad going there and I kind of done my performance, but there was so many things I would have changed when I was there. There was, I think, if I look back, I think we probably conceded 15 deflected goals where I'm just stood there like, and I knew why it was. It was because we were so deep and like, at the time as a like youngish lad, I didn't want to like upset the thing and say, listen, like go in and see someone and say, we need to do this, we need to do that, because go, who's this kid? Like, do you know what I mean? You had lads who had played 500 games in the league, and then I kind of thought, right, from now on, like that's a wake-up call for me. Like I've been on loan, so it's not as bad for me because I'm going back to Rangers. It's fine for me. Obviously, you don't like a relegation on your CV, but I was like, that's never happening again. I'm like, wherever I go, if people don't like me, I'm stamping my authority and I'm get out of my box sort of thing. And then, yeah, obviously went back to Rangers that summer. It was the same conversation. Listen, we're getting Wes out. Don't worry about it. You're going to be number 2 again. And it just didn't happen. Wes kind of was in a situation where I think he wanted to leave. And this happens in football so much where obviously they probably wanted him to leave. He probably wanted to leave. But sometimes it's just the right thing's not there for both parts. Obviously, Rangers all wanted money, maybe too much. But then if they got too much, Wes wouldn't have gotten the same wages, and that's how it ended up. So I remember, yeah, just Wes came into me, and he was obviously trying to get away at the time because he wanted to go out and play. He hadn't played for sort of a year, whatever it was. And he was like, you. And I was like, what? He's like, you're getting out before me. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, Blackpool. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, and then that was it. My agent had rang me, says, oh, mate, you're going to Blackpool on loan. I was like, all right, what happened to that contract? And he was like, don't know. He said, basically, they're saying they're going to send you out on loan and then we'll sort things after that. And I was like, right, fair enough. I said, listen, it looks like kind of that's my time. I had a year left on my deal and they were sending us out on loan for a year. And yeah, so I was like, listen, Blackpool's a massive club. We're down in League One. I had just been taken over by a guy who was a fan who was multi-millionaire. And I was like, this is a great time to go. And went then, enjoyed every second of it. Played up until the December under Simon Grayson. I tore my bicep on Boxing Day. Grayson ended up getting the sack, I think, 2 weeks later, but I'd already done my contract. Everything was done because I was signing a pre-contract for Blackpool because obviously it's cross-border. And he got sacked, and then basically I was just waiting for the solicitors to kind of push it through and all that. And then he sort of got sacked. I was injured. They brought in Chris Maxwell just for a 6 month, just till the end of the season. And then sort of new manager came in and kind of said, listen, things are changing here a little bit. Like, I want to have a look at everyone. Didn't hear anything. And then COVID hit. Next thing I know, I was ringing the chief exec at Blackpool, like, what's going on here? And he was like, oh, like, I thought I'd made it known you weren't staying. And I was like, no, what's happening with that contract? And it just ended up that they wanted to go with Chris Maxwell. Obviously, I'd had a bit of a bad injury and stuff like that, which was fine. And then going into COVID, sat there in my house in May and just thinking, I haven't got a club again here. And obviously, I had a lot of interest, but obviously a lot of clubs were saying, listen, we don't know what's happening. We don't know when we're going to be back in. We don't know whether we're going to have fans. We don't know what we can do, basically. But then I remember Jim Goodwin. Lee Hodson's my best mate, and he was at St Mirren that season. So obviously the season before, but obviously COVID stopped it. And he had spoke to the gaffer about me quite a lot, and he was like, yeah, definitely bring me in, but I don't think you'll come here, this, that, and the other. And I remember just one day, Hod's texted saying, oh, Jim Goodwin's going to give you a call. And I was like, oh, fair enough. Didn't think anything of it. He rang me and just said, listen, there's a lot going on at the minute. We want to stick a 2-year deal on the table. We're not going to mess about. We're going to give you, like, what do you want? We know we can't pay like the Rangers wages, whatever. Like, we're going to give you this. We're not going to go to and fro and where, like, you say this, this is what we can do. I want you to come in and play for 2 years. He says, you're going to play every single game, no matter what. If you're fit, you're going to play. I want you to come in. And he says, I want you to get me a move, and I want you to get yourself a move. And that's how it was. And we always had that understanding of, like, we both obviously came to St Mirren and we were saying the better that we do is the better for the club, and it's better for ourselves. So it worked hand in hand with everything. And honestly, I just wanted to come back to St Mirren to prove to a lot of people, wow, he can actually play Scottish football, because at Rangers, I don't feel I actually got that long period of a chance for people to go, wow, he's actually a top goalkeeper.
And that's how Goodwin sells it a lot. I've seen him say before, like, he doesn't want somebody, well, at the time, go to St Mirren, want to play there for 5-10 years. He wants somebody to stay for maybe a year or two, then get the club money, get them sell a good move. That's probably the best way to sell. Like, probably most clubs in Scotland, really.
Aye. I think if you take away probably the top sort of 4 clubs, sort of Celtic, Rangers, Aberdeen, Hearts and Hibs, I think you've got to kind of go that way, because the clubs need to make a profit. The clubs need players to go and do well, and otherwise you're just going to get players that you're paying money for who's going to do all right for 2 years, see you later, another 2, and they're never making the money off players. So I think the way he said, listen, we're a newly promoted, we've just avoided getting relegated. He says, we're going for top 6. He says, there's no 2 ways about it. He said, I want one semi-final, I want 2, I want a top 6. And the way he sold the club, and just the just the man himself speaking to him and how adamant he was that he wanted you. And he wasn't, as you say, he's not like, oh, you're going to come to St Mirren for 10 years and kind of be a club legend and you're going to do this and that, because he knows that he wants players to do well, move on to big things. He wants to do that himself, obviously, as we've seen. And I think for a lot of the, not smaller Scottish clubs, because it's harsh, but like, I would sort of say bottom 6 clubs, I think that's kind of a perfect way to do it. And I thought the gaffer was the biggest part of me going, because I could have probably sat around during COVID and I'd have probably getting a decent sort of move, sort of League One in England, maybe even a Championship as a number 2 at the time. And just the way he sold the club to me, and the first day I met him, everything about the club, just how family orientated it is, but with the drive as well of, listen, I want to go here with this club, really sold us on it. And I think every single player's interview that you probably see that came to our club during that period said Jim Goodwin was the one that kind of brought me here, and it was kind of everything that he had to say was why I came here.
And we've said it earlier, mate, we've arranged this for the worst possible time. He's left about 2-3 days ago, but just how good is he, like, every day on the training park and stuff, even like team talks and that as well, because he seems like he's quite a fiery character as well.
He's got both sides, some, but he's also like great family man. He's one of them gaffers that he's kind of your best mate, but you don't cross him. He training every day, loved it. I mean, I think as well he came out and he said, obviously, he was at Alloway, he was driving a van for Cadbury's at the time, and kind of, he had been a player himself. You've seen him as a player. I mean, how many times he got sent off, and everybody, he's one of them players that everybody hated. But no, what a manager, man. He just, I mean, tactically, forget all that, just like really drives the team, and kind of you can hear him on the sideline driving, like shouting press, like just really, really motivator. But training day in, day out was enjoyable, but it was hard. And to be honest, he's one of the only managers that I've had where even lads out the team, I've never really heard anyone say anything bad about him. And that shows like a real good manager, because he's been there as a player himself. He used to say, I've been here as a player where I'm not playing. I've got to go down on like a Monday after I've not played. The other lads are doing a recovery, getting a nice little massage and all that. And he says, you're down there, it's snowing, there's 5 years. And like, he understood it. So it was all, and as well, days off, your days off or your days off. You play on a Saturday. If he had organised Sunday, Monday off, if you got beat, don't care, Sunday, Monday off, enjoy, lads, go and have a pint, get your heads back on it. Tuesday, we're back in working. Or even if kind of, listen, we're in on Sunday, even if you won 3-0, we're in on Sunday. Do you know what I mean? So every part of what he'd done was brilliant. And I think he drove the standards through the club, because obviously they were saying top six, and he kind of made sure that was installed in every single player that, listen, like, and we believed that we could get it, and we ended up just getting pipped on it. But realistically, when you look at probably his budgets last season, everything to do with it, we should have been nowhere near the top 6. And to miss out on the last day for us was like, it was a sickener, don't get us wrong, but we were like, wow, we're disappointed at getting somewhere that we should never even have probably been close to. So now the standards that he was driving, and the type of bloke that he is, he was brilliant for the football club.
And I said this to you the other day about Jamie Langfield. I think he deserves big credit for stepping up over the weekend there. Just, I think as well, he's done such a good job with obviously yourself and Fladke as well before you. What about it? What is it about him that's so good in coaching?
I'm not going to talk him up that well, man. Every day, man, every interview, I'm like, I've talked you up again. No, honestly, he is. I don't want to disrespect anyone, because obviously I've worked with Colin Stewart, but Colin Stewart had just came in. But he's definitely, I think he's the best in Scotland, and he's one of the best I've ever worked with. Just not even like, I'm not even going to say that as like goalkeeping coach, because there's a lot of goalkeeping coaches out there that are amazing, but it's just more as a person. Sort of, he had just finished playing. He had a long career. He had his massive ups where he was Scotland squads, European, and he had his massive downs where like he was hated by certain clubs, like where he even said to me, he said, wow, he said, some of the games I had, he says, like, I was so bad. And just someone who understands that sort of goalkeeping situation that's just finished playing. And I've made mistakes in the game, and he was like, all right, mate, see you Monday. Like, not bothered whatsoever. And like, I'll have the biggest worldie. High five, well done, mate, see you Monday. Like, and he doesn't get too up, too down, nothing like that. But his impact on the goalkeeping situation is, I think the group that he gets together is massive, because even Dean Linus, when he stepped in, has been unbelievable in training. Dean Linus is like, even today, Dean Linus, small side games, doesn't concede a goal, unbelievable, right? And like, Peter Minsky's gone out and loan to Stenhousemuir, flying, played 3, not lost, man of the match in 1, saved a pen in the other. Vaclav obviously came over from the unknown. No one had heard of him, turned him into probably one of the best goalkeepers in Scotland at the time. So he knows you as a person more than as a goalkeeper, and he puts on sessions. Some days, like, I'll walk in the morning, he's like, "You're tired, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Hi." He's like, "No bother, 2 touch and bit of fun the day." And I'm like, buzzing. Like, do you know what I mean? And like, then there's some days where he's like, "Right, mate, we're working hard the days, like, just get your head around it." And I was like, "Oh, no bother." And you actually love working hard under him, because he puts so much into everything, and people don't see the stuff he does behind the scenes. It's not just the goalkeepers. I'm not kidding. So COVID situation, he's doing, like, you've got 2 buses that you've got to space out everyone. He does that. He was doing the team lineups. He was doing set plays. He was doing snow days. He was down helping the groundsman. Like, honestly, everything at that club. He was kit man. The kit man was off for a week, like 10 days of COVID. He was kit man. Like, honestly, he is, like, behind that club. He does so much. And obviously, people don't know, he still does the academy goalkeepers. He does us through the day, hangs about, does the young goalkeepers at 5, 6, 7 o'clock, and gets home at 9 o'clock at night. But honestly, what a top bloke. Like, as a bloke, everything, good laugh, like, in the physio room every day with me, like, sitting having a coffee, game of darts, whatever it is, just like around the boys, second to none, honestly. And I think the goalkeeping side of things, I mean, a lot of goalkeeping coaches can put on a good session, that, but I think him as a man and as a man management is kind of what's kind of drove all the keepers that he's sort of had, have done it unbelievable. So yeah, he's top bloke. I've done enough bigging him up now. I was
going to say, you've really bigged him up. Make sure he watches this.
He's just gonna retire now. That's what he's done now. So he's gonna watch this, and he's gonna be sending it on to everyone.
And we said before we started recording, you met the new gaffer, Stephen Robinson, today. What was he saying to you? How, like, from your insight, players' insight, what happens when a new manager's first appointed?
We all talk about this, because this is the first time in anyone's career at St Mirren. I think there was an odd one where a manager has left the club to go on to a bigger thing. It's generally, you get a manager after, like, someone being sacked because you're down the bottom of the league or whatever. So I've been through so many managers being sacked and whatnot. So it was such a strange thing of, like, we're actually flying in a real good place, like, everything's high, and your manager's gone, and then a new one's obviously coming in. So it's such a strange one, because obviously the new gaffers came in today, and training was lively. It was kind of like bouncing, and sometimes a fresh face, even when you're doing well, can be a really good thing. And I've got no doubt that, like, the gaffer Jim would have took us on to big things as well. But sometimes you never know. We could have lost our next 2-3 games under Jim Goodwin, and all of a sudden you're down looking at the relegation again. But the new gaffers came in, and the enthusiasm today, and kind of, he said to us straight away, "Listen, I don't want to, you've been on such a good run. I'm not going to be coming in saying, right, we're going to change this, we're going to change that." It's just kind of like, over time, he'll obviously put his own stamp on things, but at the minute, it's just about, like, him putting little tweaks into obviously what we're doing at the minute, which I think is brilliant. And I think it's a credit him. He's obviously a top manager. He's done brilliant up in Scotland. I know a lot about him just based off, obviously, we've got a lot of lads that came from Motherwell, and obviously playing against him, he's been successful up here massively. and met him today. Seems a great bloke. So yeah, hopefully it's a good time under him. We've obviously got a big game straight away tomorrow night for him to come into. But no, I think it's a real clever and a real brilliant appointment by the club. Sort of someone who's experienced up here and a good guy as well. So yeah, hopefully we can kick on with him and kind of bring the success that obviously Jim Goodwin had obviously set the stall out, and hopefully we can do just as well under the new gaffer.
We'll no talk about tomorrow because I didn't want to get the blame off St Mirren fans for being the jinx. That's a big game for you, that. So this season so far, how would you sum it up?
Sorry?
This season so far, how would you sum it up?
It's been the biggest roller coaster season I've ever had. So obviously we went from like flying to no wins in 11 or something. We've drawn so many games, and all of a sudden we came back from the winter break and we just went bang, 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 won 3 games, sort of like straight away, winning the cup and stuff like that. And then we've just kind of been flying since. So we always said it. We went into the winter break not where we wanted to be. We wanted to be like on a lot more points than we were. But then all of a sudden we went bang, straight away, the wins in the bag. And then all of a sudden now we've put ourselves in the mix. Obviously, you see how tight it is, man. You lose one game and all of a sudden you can be down in 9th, 10th position. You win one game and you can go up in the 4th. It's going to be the tightest end to a season for 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th I think you'll ever see. And then all of a sudden, St Johnstone, who did look dead and buried at one point, all of a sudden beat Hearts at the weekend. Honestly, this is probably going to be the most competitive season I think ever. And then all of a sudden Hearts, who looked as though 3rd was sewn up, no one was catching them. All of a sudden you're looking and thinking, well, they've lost a few on the bounce now. So I think it's been a brilliant season so far, but you're 2 wins away from being absolutely flying, and then you're 2 wins away from looking over your shoulder. So it's such on a knife edge that we've went on a good run at a good time, but you need to kind of progress it. But personally, for me, last season and this season, it's been unbelievable on personal level. I don't think, apart from maybe a couple of games, I could have done any better than what I've done. So absolutely buzzing for me and just trying to kick on still.
And at the time of recording, I think there's is it maybe about 3 points between about 5 teams?
That's right, aye.
It's absolutely crazy, like you said. And even if St Johnstone or Dundee go on a wee run, hopefully no starting them on.
Aye.
It just sucks other teams right back into it.
It's honestly, because I remember sort of last season you were looking like Killy were done, sort of Hamilton were more or less done, and kind of you weren't going there going, oh, this is a free win, but you were going there thinking we should batter these. Like if you play properly, you should batter them, and there weren't bad teams. They were just obviously you felt like you could properly get after them, and sort of this year it is you're looking at the fixtures and you look and think, oh well, St Johnstone's got this one, and then you're like, there's not one easy game in this league this year, and I honestly think it's the strongest the league's ever been. Obviously, Rangers won the title last year, then now Celtic have jumped above them, and then all of a sudden Hearts coming back into the league. Aberdeen obviously haven't started how they want to do, but if they win their next game, they can go up into 5th. Hibs obviously under new management and stuff like that hasn't started brilliant, but win at the weekend. I think honestly this league is the strongest it's ever been. I don't see how it can get any stronger. But then also suddenly you're looking down, going, Arbroath could come up, and Scottish football, it's crazy, isn't it?
I know. And what would you say your best memories of your time at St Mirren so far are?
There's been so, I mean, obviously 2 semi-finals were brilliant, but obviously with no fans being there, it was such a sickener. But I think the 2 semi-finals, for us to even get into 2 semi-finals for the club was massive. I don't know. I think it's such a tough one to pinpoint one specific thing, but probably beating Celtic away, I think, for the club last season. I mean, I know there was no fans there, but we beat Celtic away at Parkhead, beat them 2-1. The club hadn't done it since whenever it was. You're going there basically thinking, right, can we kind of not get beat 6-7-0 here, take a sort of 1-2-0. But at the time, obviously, they were struggling a little bit. And we actually went into that game like we could get something here. And it was weird, like all the boys were talking like, we're going to get something here. And like there was like a proper belief of it. And then I remember I think we went 1-0 up, and then they went back to 1-1. I was thinking, oh, here we go. Is this like they're going into the next game? And then we scored one of the best goals ever. I pinged it out the fullback. He one-touched it inside, one touch down the line, cut back goal. And I was like, wow, we're an actual good team. And I think that was like, because realistically, we should get nowhere near Celtic Rangers. Like, I mean, I know it's on the day, like it's a cup final for us, and you see in the cup what can happen and stuff like that. But realistically, you look at like the types of players that they've got, international superstars, and you should get nowhere near them. So to beat a team of Celtic's like caliber and the players that they had in their team and stuff like that, I think that for the club was like, and for me personally, obviously coming from Rangers just recently, had a really good game, made a big save at the end, was like, it was that extra edge on it. So probably personally, that Celtic game was, for me, was the biggest high of the club.
There's a video of you that goes about after making probably that save. You see that? You know the one on about?
I know which one you're on. I know. Honestly, right, I look back at it, right, and I was like, it's one of them moments in the time where you're so pumped up, and then you watch back like, oh, what are you doing? Like, honestly, it's like you see Alan McGregor every week, and he's a lunatic on the football pitch, honestly, screaming at refs. And to be honest, I'm exactly the same. If you come across anyone that's played against me and they say, oh, what's he like? And they'll go, oh my God. But like, it's just, you get so built up in the moment. It is like, it's an anger, it's a joy, it's everything that like, you just do the most mental stuff. Honestly, it's just it was one of them moments, and I watch it back and I was just like, fair enough, you made a decent save, but like, no need for that. But I think it was just more like a relief because we had 1-2-1. It was nothing to do with the fact that it was because I was Rangers and they were Celtic. And obviously because of the Rangers fans seeing it, they were buzzing but it was just because we wanted to win that game. We had literally grinded out, like hanging on to the death. I made a save in the 92nd minute. And to be honest, if it was against Ross County, I would have probably done the same. But there's so many clips I look back on myself and like, what were you doing there, man? It's just, I just get so built up in the game, and it's just, as everyone says, goalkeepers, they're a different breed.
If it's all right with you, mate, we'll finish off on the quick fire questions.
Aye, spot on.
So your best mate in football?
Lee Hodgson.
The best stadium you've played in?
Stadium. Emirates.
The best player you've played against? One in Scotland, one in England.
England. I'm going to have to go Eden Hazard in England.
That's a good shot.
And then Scotland, I'm going to go Joe Hart just because of his career. I'm going to have to.
Your biggest achievement in football?
Playing Premier League.
The biggest moaner that you've played with?
Biggest what?
The biggest moaner.
Alan McGregor, easy.
And this might get you a wee bit. The best five-a-side team of players you've played with and why?
Right. Am I in this team or am I picking a goalkeeper?
If you can put yourself in if you want.
Right. Centre half, Colaccini, the best centre half ever. Honestly, training, literally, Cruyff turns on his own goal line. Could have played for Barcelona. Trust me, he could have played. You know, when Barcelona were like the same masher on and that, I was like, Colaccini all day. So he is 100% in that. Hatton Ben Arthur has to go in there.
Wow,
what a player. Honestly, he is, again, he could have went on to the biggest. He was just obviously madman at the time, but he was amazing. Played with, I'm going to go at the back again, and I'm going to go alongside Colaccini, Tav, just because you look at the goals he's scored, everything he's done, what he's achieved, where he's came from, and he's a good mate of mine. So I think him as well, and me and him will get on to each other quite a lot as well. So I'll put put him in there. Who else we're going for here? You've stumped us. Yeah, this is a real.
You're needing a striker.
So if we're going main goal, Tav, Colaccini. So I need a striker. This is going to be a real. There's three. Obviously, I've got to go from my Newcastle days because Newcastle at the time was. So you're between Papa Cisse, Demba Ba, and Loic Remy. But for me, it has to be Loic Remy. I mean, Demba Ba and Papis were brilliant and scored some of the best goals. But Loic, I remember when he came in, sort of on loan from QPR at the time, and I remember he scored that goal from QPR where he's running on when he hits it with the instep and it comes back in. He'd done that every single day in training, and he was an absolute joke. Everyone would talk about him being Henri and stuff like that, and I was like, I could see it, and he was unbelievable. But there's so many players that I know that I've left out, like Johan Kabais. But I mean, what can I do?
Yeah, it's a good team, to be fair.
Aye, so Hatton Ben Arfa. Well, we'll go. I'm going to put myself in goal. I'd love to play that team. Colaccini, Tav, Hatton Ben Arfa, Loic Remy. Is that 5?
That's
main goal.
Aye, that's
Tav,
5. Aye.
Hatton Ben Arfa. Yeah, 5. So yeah, I'd have to go with them. I've played with so many, and if I wasn't playing myself in goal, I've got to give Alan McGregor a special mention. Not saying that he'd be flying about in 5-a-sides and stuff like that like now, but what a career, what a man, what a legend. So I'd have to go with him just based off what he's done if I wasn't playing in goal.
That's something. Top man, Jack. Thanks a lot for coming on, mate. I appreciate it.
No worries, anytime, mate.